All right, guys, so you are asking for a 47 or a high A, but not quite perfect. So that's what this is for you. So let's go ahead and get started. So the thesis was the figurative language. In The Thing in the Forest, A.S. Bryant uses figurative language to personify Penny and Primrose's loss of innocence as the thing in the forest. Well, my first concern was actually the essay for The Thing in the Forest was supposed to be a symbol essay. But technically, because you're discussing, our author is discussing the figurative language to personify Penny and Primrose's loss of innocence, that's actually symbolism as well. So I let it go. When Penny and Primrose are sent by their parents to escape the war in their hometowns, neither of them was aware where they were going nor how long the journey might take. And that just looks like a little bit of background. If you want to use one of your sentences for background, that's fine. They're afraid and confused as their parents did not know quite how to explain the danger of war to them, which is a parallel to how these young girls would have to face their loss of innocence alone without the support of their parents. So that's a really great point about how just by sending them away for the war, that is a loss of innocence. This would actually be a really good place to connect back to the idea that they've been sent away and then now they're seeing the thing in the forest. So I would actually connect back to this statement once we look at the thing in the forest. Just before they enter the dark forest outside the house, they are confronted by a girl named Alice, who has an engaging smile made for loving parents and grandparents. The smile she wears is out of place in the girl's current environment because the young girl is not a literal person, but a personified representation of innocence itself. Now, here is the deal with that. To make a huge statement like that Alice is the personification and representation of innocence itself, and that's highlighted by the fact that Penny and Primrose say that she's too little and will get lost. That's a really great statement, but it needs detail. You can't just tell me that she doesn't actually exist or that she's a personified representation of innocence itself without actually proving that. So you actually have to prove that that happens. The two older girls ran down the steps and across the lawn and through the gate into the forest, symbolizing their abandoning of their innocence in the form of Alice. Again, you need to actually make a concrete connection as to how them running into the forest is the loss of their innocence. Once they enter the forest and once they enter the forest and wander farther into its depths, they experience a sound and scent which gave the strange impression of moving in waves from the whole perimeter of the forest. So this would be the part and the item and the place where you would discuss the thing and how that is personified to connect to the idea of this figurative language and the loss of innocence for Penny and Primrose. When they see the sound and scent, which gives a strange impression of moving in waves from the whole perimeter of the forest, your author does have a small discussion about that over here. The thing they see, hear, and smell courses through their entire being, illustrated by the waves of smell and sound through the forest, and they are assaulted with fearful images that compose a very large body appearing to be glued together like still wet paper mache. Now here's my question. What does this right here this idea of wet paper mache and appearing to be glued together, have to do with them losing their innocence and using figurative language to personify Penny and Primrose? It's a really good bit of information, but if you look at the sentences after it, where it says, the bits of wire netting, foul dishcloths, wire wood of pan scrubbing, rusty nuts and bolts, trailing behind the thing, represent these two innocent girls suddenly becoming aware of all the evil and horror in the world around them. But in order to make that statement, you have got to show the girls' reaction to the thing. Because you can't say that the girls are becoming aware of all the evil if you don't actually prove that they reacted to the thing. Same thing with the next sentence. This sudden loss of innocence sticks with the girls throughout their lives, leading one to study the development of psychology. Now, this is really strong. And the other to discover her talent for storytelling, both of which are two different ways of the girls trying to come to terms with the evil of the world. So showing that the girls change later in life is good because they study developmental psychology, one of them does, and a talent for storytelling. But again, my question was, how so? How does studying psychology and telling stories are coming to terms with the evil in the world? That's a really a strong point and a great connection, which is why this is an A, obviously. But my question to strengthen it was, how so? how do they come to terms with the evil in the world. However, just as the thing met a sharp stone and allowed itself to be sliced through, flowed sluggishly round, and 2 or 3 smaller worms convulsed and reunited. The girls are eventually able to come to terms with the horror of the thing, suggested by Primrose, telling the story that's never been told before, the story of her own loss of innocence, going into detail as to how they come into terms with the horror of the thing, making a connection by how the girls were actually smaller worms who convulsed and were reunited or were sliced through by the thing, and that changed them, and that's how come they come to the terms of the horror of the thing, would be really powerful as well. Although the ending is very powerful, because our author does say that the story of his or her own loss of innocence is the reason that they tell the story, and it's never been told before. So it's actually a very powerful and strong ending. So these are things that you would want to keep in mind to bring the paper up to a full A.